and declare your boundaries. Put a stamp on your work of faith. Any work that you do, let it exemplify Christ. Even in Colossians 3, called you that outside even the church in every work that you do shall exemplify, and you shall walk as though you work for Jesus Christ. That is your claim. And that is how you stand approved. For you see, Christ himself in the passage talked about the being testified by the Spirit. And I mentioned to you about people that often come to say they are born again because they know they are born again. And because their spirit tells them they are born again as if their spirit is that of the Holy Ghost. People who cannot distinguish between their spirit and that of the Holy Ghost. That don't understand here. Christ is talking about someone else. The Holy Ghost testifying for him. And throughout his scriptures, the Holy Ghost testified on his behalf. God testified on his behalf. But you want to testify on your own behalf and by your own self. These are people that will go to school and decide what they're going to study, and then study whatever they want to study, and then they take exam on their own, and they will mark their own papers, and they award themselves the degree. That's the kind of people we call men of God around the world today. They go to mountain, or go to one school, they call Sunday school. They spend a few months or few weeks, sometimes 1 week, 2 weeks, and there they are ordained as men of God. Yet it took Christ 30 years before he started his own ministry. And they come and say they are a master of it. They know. So you must learn from 1 Corinthians what is there. Boldly declare the gospel as Paul declared to the Corinthians. If you read also in that same 1 Corinthians 9, don't you see these long-standing disputes from Henry VIII over the position of marriage, married priest and unmarried priest during that season, celibacy came. Should we now fight on the issue of celibacy and married priest? Here, Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, answered the question. If you read in 1 Corinthians 9, 3-7, you see here he showed that the apostles did not refrain from working. Paul and Barnabas and the rest of the apostles were working. But often you see people say, the Lord told me not to work. Not that anything is wrong with the Lord telling you not to work. Because last weekend we first gave you the calling of Elijah. When the Lord asked Elijah to take his mantle over and put it over Elijah, he told him to stop his business, the farm, and follow him. So that is allowed. But the message that Paul was revealing to remember the purpose of Christ's coming is for us to do more and all things through him. That even though he said, that you may be able to do so, you shall live by what you make and by the gospel that you preach. But the key there, message there, is what most people misunderstand. They misunderstand the fact that the message was there is nothing like commensalism or parasitism in the household of Christ. For even Christ did not sit to claim, because he is God, don't forget that. but he came in the form of man. But he was the son of the carpenter. That's what he was known before his ministry started. He was working and was still working. There is nothing that says he stopped working. In the humility of his high mighty place as God, the Creator, he became man and a carpenter. He was a man that lived by the proceeds of his own hands. And so was also Paul, who was addressing the Corinthians here. Do not be lazy. And even in his letter to the Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, if you read from verse 3 to 15, you hear the command that is given. Separate from such a lazy man, such a busybody, such person that refused to work. And in fact, let him not to eat. He shouldn't come and stretch out his own hands and waiting for somebody to feed him if he's able to work. He said, Paul in his letter was saying that even though he has the right to do so, but they did not do so because they want to set an example for you in 2 Thessalonians 3 to 15. In addition to what you have heard, you will see that it was not only Peter that was known to be married. The apostles themselves have the right to take along a believing wife. To take along a believing wife. What does that mean? To be married. So it doesn't matter whether you are married or not. The main thing is that you are serving God in truth and in the spirit. You are spreading the gospel God gave you. And defend it with all that you have all your life, giving up everything else. For if you remember, in the book of Matthew, chapter 19, from verse 29 to 30, you will see the Lord himself, Jesus Christ, speaking. In 20